How's it going, everybody? My name is Sean. My call sign is W9FFF. I'd like to welcome you to episode 1 of Ham Radio Dude, and I would ask you to like this video if you do like it, and consider subscribing so you can see more content in the future. Today we're going to talk about the Allstar SHARI device. We're going to discuss what it is, how to install it, and a review of the actual device itself. Now, what is the SHARI, you might ask? Well, the SHARI, according to hamprojects.info, is a ham radio construction project designed by N8AR, which implements a Raspberry Pi hosted Allstar node using a nice RF SA818 embedded UHF radio module. It's designed as a kit for construction and use in the amateur radio service by licensed amateur radio operators who can assure that the SHARI kit they are using meets the required operating requirements, including frequency, bandwidth, power levels, and fundamental harmonic frequencies. SHARI plugs into 2 USB jacks, and it has a maximum output power of 200 to 400 milliwatts. After reading all that information about the SHARI, I decided, hey, this might actually be a pretty good solution for a home Allstar node, as well as even maybe a portable node. I reached out to N8AR on a Sunday night, explained to him I was interested in 2 devices, and he sent me an invoice very quickly within 5 minutes. I thought that was very superb customer service. The SHARI comes in 2 different packages. You could buy a kit for the SHARI, or you could buy it fully configured. And the kit is something about around $50 or so, plus shipping. We'll get you a kit, and what you'll have to do is you'll have to solder things in, like the USB ports, the LEDs, the antenna port. You'll have to put together the case and the antenna on the device as well. However, it does come with everything. You just have to install it. And then there's the $70 or so package, which includes the SHARI right here, fully configured, ready to go. All you have to do is screw in this antenna and plug it into your Raspberry Pi. It's that easy. Now, for sake of the video, I just said fully configured for $70, and I apologize. What I should have said was everything was fully installed and put together, ready to go in that sense. But there still is some configurations we'll have to do later. After reading the instructions, naturally you take out the SHARI device and you kind of look at it and do whatever you got to do to get it up and running. So I took the SHARI device out of the box, I screwed in the antenna, and then it was ready for the instructions to get everything configured. But before I go there, I do want to say that I did glance over the workmanship and the quality of this product, and overall I am impressed. The antenna slot is in a nice spot. You got these LEDs here. These side cases, or these side enclosures, you're not going to be able to tell on that side, maybe on this side, but there's kind of a texture to them. These are 3D printed, and they seem to be of good quality or decent quality. Now, this isn't weatherproof. I'm going to let you know that right now, and it's not supposed to be. Never claimed to be, but I want you to know that because I don't want you to fry your device. And the case itself seems like it's pretty good quality too. What I did next is I decided I was going to pull up the instructions and I was going to walk through how to get everything installed and configured. Now, configuration of the device is going to be the next step, and how to get everything installed. So all I'm going to do quite simply here is I'm going to minimize this beautiful photo of the SHARI. I'm going to go ahead and open up my SSH client PuTTY, and I'm going to go ahead and open up the instructions on how to get everything configured. To get started, I'm not showing you a video on how to install the Allstar network on a Raspberry Pi. If you do need to see that, there are plenty of videos on the internet, or in the future, I'd be more than happy to make a video for you. And quite simply, knowing we're not going to be doing the Allstar configuration or the setup of Allstar, and we're just concentrating on the SHARI, I'm going to go into the configuration guide, and I'm going to page down to page 11. And once I get to page 11, I'm just going to walk through the steps. So I have my Raspberry Pi plugged into power and Ethernet. I'm SSH'd via PuTTY, into the Raspberry Pi. And now I have the instructions on page 11, which is configuring the SimpleUSB tune menu for the SHARI. From the admin menu, which I'm in on the SSH client PuTTY, it's going to say go to item 12, which is run the SimpleUSB tune menu application. Now once I click in that, I'm going to be brought up with a couple options, and what we're going to need to do is we're going to need to change 3 items if they're not already changed. Item B, item F, and item G. Item B needs to be disabled, item F needs to be enabled, and item G needs to be enabled. So if I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to look at my USB PuTTY client, and I look at item B, I see that my item B is currently disabled, my item F is currently enabled, and my item G is currently enabled as well. So I'm okay. However, for the sake of this video tutorial, I'm going to go ahead and at least change one of them so you can see how it's done. Item B, changed to disabled. So if I type in B where it says make your selection now and I hit enter, now it enables it. So now my item B toggle RX boost mode is enabled, which I don't want. So one more time, I'm going to go ahead and type in B and it's going to change it back to disabled. And then what you got to do is you got to enter W to save the change settings and then enter 0 to exit the SimpleUSB tune menu. So W. And it says enter to continue. I'm going to go ahead and hit enter and then 0 to exit the menu. That's all there is to that portion of configuration. On to page 12, connecting and configuring the SHARI. In this section, you will connect your SHARI to the Raspberry Pi and use the 818 prog program to set up the radio in SHARI. Unplug the 5-volt DC power from your Raspberry Pi. Plug SHARI's USB connectors into the two lower USB portions of the Raspberry Pi. Apply for your 5-volt DC power. Use a MOBA Xterm to connect to the Pi, and this is where I'm using PuTTY. It's a SSH client that I feel comfortable with. You could use whatever SSH client you feel comfortable with. And then it says scroll down to item 9. So quite simply, we have this SHARI device plugged into the Raspberry Pi now. And what we're going to do is we're going to go down to that item. So let's see here. Item menu 9, start the bash shell interface. And once we're in the bash shell interface, it's going to tell us that we need to change our directory to the user local sbin directory as outlined in step 6. Well, it already appears that I'm in the sbin directory as indicated by my username. Let's see if I can highlight this. It says my username at my node number, and then it says sbin, which makes me think that I'm already in that directory. Again, for sakes of this video tutorial, I am going to go ahead and change my directory to the root directory so that I'm not in sbin already. So change directory, cd is what that means. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to go / user local sbin, and then I'm going to press enter. You should now find the following line prompt on your screen: root at your call at your node sbin, and that's what I got pretty much. Now it says type in 818 prog in step 7 and hit enter. And here we are. 818 prog, enter. Perfect. Now we need to choose if we're going to have a CTCSS tone or not. I'm personally going to have 107.2. So I'm going to go to this chart, which I hope you can see okay, and I'm going to find 107.2 as the PL tone, and I see that the code for it is 14. Now, there is an important note here. It says, note that the CTCSS code is a 0015 for a tone frequency of 110.9. Quite simply, you have to have 4 digits in your CTCSS tone when configuring this device. For me, it's going to be 0014. We're just going to keep that in our mind here for just a moment, but first we got to follow through this guide here on getting everything configured. So my channel spacing is going to be a 0. And now I can choose a UHF frequency that I do want to use this device on, and for me it's going to be 446.100, but with this configuration we have to add one more 0. There needs to be 4 zeros after the decimal point. And for the receive frequency, same thing, 446.1000, and enter your TXCTCSS code value, and mine happens to be 0014, and I'm going to do the same thing for the receive. My squelch value, I'm going to have it at 1 as well for this video, and again the value is going to be 8. Enable pre-de-emphasis. Pre-de-emphasis is not enabled. High pass filter will not be enabled, and low pass filter will not be enabled. Is this correct? Yes, it is. Setting frequency information, setting volume, setting filters. It is done. That portion of the setup. Configure a radio you will use to communicate with the SHARI. And so I grabbed the closest HT I had to me, which is this Baofeng radio. I will not be using this permanently. It's only for the instructions in this video. What it says in step 8 is go ahead and configure this radio for the frequency and the CTCSS frequency selected. which I have done. So 446.100 with a CTCSS of 107.2. Step 9 is to reboot the Raspberry Pi, which I've already done. And then step 10 is to re-establish your connection SSH-wise. For me, it's PuTTY. For them, it's MOBA Extreme. And you'll see I'm back in the PuTTY in the main admin menu list above. What we're going to do is we're going to go down to page 14, setting, receive, and transmit voice levels. What it says is from the admin menu, select item 12 to run the SimpleUSB tune menu application. I go down to item 12 and I hit enter. It brings me into a terminal window. And in this terminal window, which is the SimpleUSB tune menu, I'm going to select item 2 by typing in the letter 2, or the number 2, excuse me, and hitting enter. And what happens here is I'm now given an RX voice display, which shows 3 kilohertz and 5 kilohertz. The instructions are to key up your radio and speak into your radio at a normal level. And you want your level bar, which is where the green is now on this PuTTY window, to go slightly above 5 kilohertz. And since I am using this radio for the video, but not for permanent use, I'm going to go ahead and adjust a couple things so you could see accordingly. But every time I would use a new device, I may have to retune it, or it would be wise to retune it. And if you're going to use multiple devices, find a happy medium where most of the radios are within an acceptable range to you. And the best way to do that is to get an audio report from people on the Allstar network. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and key up here. This is W9 FFF testing. And I would say that my levels were slightly below 5 kilohertz, except where I strained my voice a little bit and it bumped up way past 5 kilohertz. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to hit enter in this menu as per the instructions. And it says your current setting on the RX channel is 650. Enter a new value between 0 and 999. The higher the value, the more gain you're going to have for your RX. And the lower the value, the lower everything's going to be. So that was 650, and I said I was slightly below 500. So I'm going to raise this up to 675 and hit enter. And I'm back to the voice display window. This is W9 FFF testing. And that's still slightly below. So I'm going to hit enter, and I'm going to change this value to 700 now. And this is W9 FFF testing. And with it, that's still below 5 kilohertz, but this radio has quite a few issues, and it's probably to do with the mic gain on this radio, which cannot be adjusted. I'm going to be content with the level that it's at right now, and I'm going to hit enter one more time. And it says enter a new value, but since I feel comfortable with where my value is, I'm going to hit enter one more time here. Now this is going to bring me back to the terminal menu for the SimpleUSB tune, or the SimpleTune USB. And I'm going to quite simply hit W to write the changes that I made. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to go down to step 5. Step 5 is going to be selection 3 is used to adjust the audio level from your node that you hear on the radio. The current setting is 500. This should not require any or much adjustment, but if you notice that the audio level you hear from other nodes differs from what you hear on your local repeaters or simplex, you could adjust it. I quite simply am going to skip this step right now because I don't have anybody to test this node with. However, I do know that it has been working pretty well in the past, to the point where I hear the audio and everything sounds fine. But if I needed to change that audio, I would just go into step 3 in this menu, and I would then change the values to incorporate what I feel is the best audio quality. And then select 0 to exit the USB menu, and press W to write it before you press 0 by exiting the menu. So I went ahead and I did write it just a moment ago. And now I'm going to hit 0, or enter, and then 0 to exit the menu. And I'm back in the admin menu now. The next step is testing the DTMF decoding, which quite simply I don't need to do because I know that it's working at the moment. That's how you set up the SHARI device. It was pretty simple. Really, once you get it down, it takes 5 to 10 minutes. You walk through this tutorial, it may have taken you a whole 15 to 20 minutes. And now you can just get on and you can connect to other nodes. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to page down to page 16 here. That shows a list of the commands, and I'm going to connect to a node. So for example, I'm going to use this radio and I'm going to hit *3 and then the node number. I already have a node in mind that I'm going to connect to, so all I have to do is hit
node 5024 connected to node 47688.
And quite simply, I now have everything configured. I have the Raspberry Pi and the Allstar network configured. I have the Sharri device configured, and I have my radio configured. And now that I connected to a node, I could run a test and see if anybody could hear me. I don't know if anybody's going to be on this repeater right now, in this node right now, but we will see. This is W9FFF testing. And it doesn't appear there is anybody on here right now, but I will tell you that I have tested it in the past and I know everything is working well. And that's all there is to setting up the Sharri device. Now, I had mentioned before that it plugs into the Raspberry Pi. It's USB powered by the Pi, which is nice because you don't need multiple power supplies to have everything running, which makes it a very good solution for a portable node as well as a home node. I have it in my home and at 289 milliwatts. I'm transmitting in my neighborhood and only in my neighborhood, which is very nice. I don't need my Allstar node to transmit all over town. What I do also recognize is this could be a very nice device to be used in compliance with a like a hotspot for your cell phone. If you have the Raspberry Pi 2, you might have an issue because that doesn't have built-in wireless capabilities. So you would have a hard time then tethering your cell phone connection. So if you want to do a tethering portable Allstar node, you're going to need a Raspberry Pi 3 or possibly a USB adapter on the Raspberry Pi 2 that does wireless. But if you do that, you're also going to need USB cables to extend the Sharri device away from the Raspberry Pi. Otherwise, the USB Wi-Fi card will not fit into the prior slots. And let me give you an example here. I'm going to go ahead and unplug everything. This is plugged into the bottom portion of the Raspberry Pi, but you can see I don't have access to the top two USB ports. So quite simply, I would have to get a couple of cables to run from these bottom ports to the Sharri device, and then I can plug in a wireless device. Again, that's only for the Raspberry Pi 2 because the Raspberry Pi 3 has implemented built-in wireless technology. Concluding this video, we discussed what the Sharri is, what my initial impressions were ordering the Sharri, how impressed I was with the shipping and the build quality. We walked through how easy it is to get everything configured, installed, and up and operational. And I know a lot of people don't like Allstar because it's voice over IP and not truly amateur radio, as some people say. However, I think the Sharri device actually kind of knocks that out of the park because you're using RF to connect to the Sharri device or your radio module, which then takes the signal and throws it through the internet to another location somewhere, but you're still using RF. So if you are somebody who likes to tinker with not only amateur radios, but computers and Linux, this might be the device for you. It serves a really good purpose. And as I mentioned, it would be very easy to have this as a portable node if you were driving mobile or if you were on vacation, maybe you were on a mountaintop. I can't find anything wrong with the Sharri. I wanted to give a fair review of everything, but I don't see anything wrong with the Sharri. Everything was simple to install and just very easy. The process was just so easy from start to finish. I would highly recommend you check out the Sharri, especially for the price point. I don't know how they're selling for so cheap, but I think that's a great deal. And the only other thing to do now then is conclude this video. In conclusion, we spoke about my ordering process with the Sharri, everything it took to order it, how quickly shipping was, my initial observations when I received the package, I opened it, and I had the awesome printout of all the statistics on the radio, including the harmonics and the deviation. Plugging this into the Raspberry Pi and getting it configured and how easy it was to do so. and my overall observation of how sturdy and durable of a product this appears to be. So I'd like to thank N8AR for actually making such a cool device at such a nice price point. I really do feel like that any amateur radio operator who is interested in voice over IP amateur radio communications may consider getting this device. It is cool to transmit RF and then have it go through voice over IP over the internet and to another amateur radio operator. Some people say that's not in the spirit of amateur radio, but I think it just adds a little fun, especially to us people who like computers and Linux and tinkering around. Thanks again for checking out this video, checking out my channel, Ham Radio Dude, episode 1. I hope you enjoyed it. I really do. I like to help other people and share the knowledge that I have and learn things along the way myself, because that's what we're all doing, is we're all learning, not only in this community, but in everything we do daily. If you stuck around this long and you hit subscribe, leave a comment in the bottom of the video saying you subscribed. And if I can get to 100 subscribers by February 10th, 2020, I will use a YouTube generator to generate a random comment. And if that comment says subscribe, I'll give you a free Sharry device. Somebody's going to win a free Sharry device as long as we hit that 100 subscriber goal. I'll pay for shipping. I'll pay for the Sharry. All you got to do is say that you subscribed. Hey, thanks again. We'll talk to you soon.